Ever get stuck in the most underrated job class? Yeah, that's Noel Stolen's life. He's the grandson of the legendary Brandon Stolen, aka Overdeath, the greatest seeker in history. Yet somehow, Noel got dealt the talker class. But Noel's no ordinary talker. He's got one goal: to become the strongest seeker and prove that his job class won't stop him from running the world's greatest clan. 2 years ago, Noel's peaceful town faced an unimaginable threat. A level 12 abyss opened, bridging the human and demon worlds, and chaos ensued. Fire rained from the sky, and monsters roamed the streets like it was their personal buffet. Among them, a terrifying Lord Monster emerged. But hey, Noel's grandfather Brandon was no pushover. He'd taken down an even stronger abyss creature, Cocytus the Silverfish, back in the day. With a reputation as Overdeath, surely Brandon would save them all again, right? Well, sort of. Brandon led the survivors to safety and faced the demon army alone, his blade cutting through enemies like they were paper. But age catches up with even the greatest heroes. Noel knew this, and yet when Brandon faced the Lord, Noel could only watch in fear as the sounds of battle faded into the night. After what felt like an eternity, Noel found his granddad lying wounded, defeated by time more than anything else. Before passing, Brandon left Noel with a message: no matter how weak you are, never let others look down on you. Those words burned in Noel's heart as he vowed to become the strongest seeker, even if his class was talker. Fast forward 2 years, and Noel hasn't forgotten that vow. Now leading his own team of C-rank seekers, he's got Walter, a guy with more muscle than brains, Lloyd, their slightly more level-headed leader, and Tanya, the magic expert. Their mission: to take down a queen lesser vampire. Sounds simple, right? Well, if there's one thing Noel knows, it's that nothing is ever as easy as it seems. The queen lesser vampire can spawn hordes of minions, which makes charging at it head-on a terrible idea. But Walter, bless his heart, suggests exactly that. As the battle kicks off, Noel starts barking orders. Everything's going according to plan, until the queen vampire unleashes a poisonous gas that separates him from the group. Walter, in his usual fashion, starts yelling for Noel to do his job and give orders. But Noel's had enough. The constant reminder that he's just a talker finally breaks him. A nerve snaps, and Noel pulls out his weapon, ready to show that talkers can do a whole lot more than talk. He casts Tactician, boosting his team's spatial awareness, followed by Battle Voice, which speeds up their stamina and magic recovery. With his buffs in place, the team charges in, taking down lesser vampires left and right. But the queen isn't going down without a fight, and her minions keep swarming in. Tanya, holding the barrier, warns that if any more join the battle, they'll be toast. Noel doesn't miss a beat, casting peer support to stabilize Tanya's nerves. Even when things get dire, Noel's precise calculations and sharp commands keep his team in sync. When the time is right, he activates Stun Howl, freezing the monsters just long enough for his team to land the killing blow on the queen. But just when they think it's over, a stray vampire lunges at Noel. In classic Noel fashion, he's already predicted its attack and calculated that the queen would fall just in time to save him. The timing? Perfect. But instead of basking in his own brilliance, Noel's team thinks his strategy was a bit too reckless. Typical. With the mission behind them, the team heads to Etre, the bustling capital of the Venat Empire. Here, magic runs rampant, and so do the abysses. In fact, the entire economy relies on magical tools made from materials harvested in the abyss. Seekers like Noel and his crew are responsible for gathering these resources, and as a result, they're respected, at least the ones who have made a name for themselves. Unfortunately, Noel's group is still relatively unknown, but fame isn't on Noel's mind as they enter the city. He's got a bigger goal: forming a clan. It's an idea he's been mulling over for a while, and he saved up a hefty 7 million fil to get started. But it's not just about money. Noel knows that to become the strongest seeker, he needs to surround himself with the best of the best. After completing their first 5 million fil mission, Walter celebrates with too many drinks, while Noel stays quiet, his mind occupied with their future. Lloyd and Tanya, however, are skeptical of Noel's plan to start a clan. They're just C-rankers, after all, and the cost of establishing a clan is no joke. But Noel has been gathering information for years, and he's confident they can make it work. Besides, they're already paying steep fees to be affiliated with another clan. Why not strike out on their own? Walter, surprisingly, agrees with Noel, which helps sway the vote in his favor. But before they can get too excited, Lloyd reminds Noel that saving up to form a clan isn't enough. It's a tall order, but Noel isn't backing down. Without hesitation, he reminds the group of his ultimate goal: to become the strongest seeker in the world. He'll stop at nothing to surpass his grandfather's legacy and show the world that a talker can lead the greatest clan of all time. But just as things seem to be going in the right direction, disaster strikes. Walter barges into Noel's room, revealing that Lloyd and Tanya have betrayed them, leaving Noel's dream of starting a clan hanging by a thread. Now, with his closest allies gone and his future uncertain, Noel must face his biggest challenge yet, proving that no matter the odds, a talker can rise to the top. In the second episode of The Most Notorious Talker Runs the Greatest Clan, Noel holds a letter in his hands, written by Lloyd, from which he learns that Lloyd had made a large failed investment and was in debt, which is why he stole 12,800,000 fil of their party's funds and fled to the capital. Learning this, Noel bursts into a hysterical fit, amused at the thought that the ever-chivalrous Lloyd did this, although Walter doesn't understand how Noel can be laughing at something like that, and gets mad at him. Walter tells Noel that he went to Lloyd early to tell him about a good job he heard about at the tavern last night. That's when he found his room cleaned out and was handed this letter by the innkeeper. Over half a day since they had left, while normally they would not even meet till afternoon. Noel is impressed by Lloyd's plan. Upon Walter asking about what they were going to do, Noel tells him there should be record of the gate they passed through last night. Walter tells him he will beat him to a pulp, of course.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
Noel takes an annoyed sigh, repeats what Walter had said, and admits that's truly a plan only a muscle-headed fairy like Walter could come up with. Noel then grabs Walter by the collar and makes him realize the gravity of the situation, that this was a complete betrayal. Noel tells Walter that it'd be a waste of time, even if Walter could beat them, because they wouldn't give up the money. A frustrated Walter then asks Noel that should they just do nothing about it, then to which Noel grins and says they will repay them 1,000 times, as is his motto. Noel and Walter are standing outside the Orcs Club. Noel then enters the club and announces that 2 members of his party, Blue Beyond, Lloyd and Tanya, had betrayed them by embezzling party funds, and so anyone who captures them and brings them back alive would receive 2 million fil as reward. Walter questions Noel about what he's doing.
We don't do that here.
Noel tells Walter that they could not accomplish this by themselves. Walter is confused by it, but Noel says he'll explain it later. Wolf's party, Lightning Bite, takes the offer, and Noel tells them the necessary details regarding the case. As Lightning Bite leave in a rush to fulfill this 2 million fil task, Noel is kind of disappointed, thinking this announcement didn't pay off like he thought it would, when a stranger tells Noel he wants to discuss the job over with him. Reassuring Noel, the strategy was the right one. The man tells Noel and Walter he had seen the 2 yesterday. Walter demands he tell them where they were, but the stranger says he would do it for the price offered. But quick-witted Noel immediately corrects him and tell him he would be paid only 1 million fil instead, as he was only giving them the information. The stranger tries to bargain with Noel for 1.5 million and then 1.4, but Noel remains adamant at 1 million.
Oh my.
Noel sees through the old seeker past his prime and knows he would not turn such a big offer down. This works, and the old seeker gives up, agreeing with Noel to let him do it for 1 million. He tells him that he passed them on Varley Road outside the South Gate. Noel then tells the old seeker to get his party together and wait for him at the South Gate. Noel tells Walter to go with the old seeker, and that he will join them later, saying he has something to take care of here, which he'll explain later.
What?
They meet up, and Walter asks Noel if he would be able to kill his former party members. Noel tells him he certainly would, and without mercy, even if it means killing them. Noel worries about Walter's half-hearted resolve for this, and how this could affect their task at hand. Arriving at Carnote Village, Lloyd and Tanya decide to spend the night there to rest up for their journey. Lloyd tries to cheer up Tanya by telling her, knowing Noel, he would not come after them for the money, because it would be a waste of time, when he gets interrupted by Noel himself, who asks if the 2 were enjoying their date in the village.
Today your ass is gonna die, bitch.
Before Lloyd or Tanya have a chance to do anything, Noel completely immobilizes them with his stun howl. Hey, you know, you're pretty breathtaking for making it this far. Drop stun howl in the comments so we could know. Walter and Noel question Lloyd for their motives. Noel asks Lloyd if he had used up the payment for the lesser vampire too. Lloyd apologizes and says he used that up too.
What the fuck?
Noel follows with, was it another investment? To which Lloyd says it was a debt. Noel smiles like he finally had put all the pieces in the puzzle together and asks Lloyd if he's a gambler. The apologetic act Lloyd had been putting up thus far completely drops from his face, and he is left shocked, as though Noel had hit the nail right on its head. Cards? Dice? Roulette? You lost too much and went to a loan shark, Noel asks Lloyd. Lloyd begins to apologize again when Walter cuts him off and, exhaling his steamy breath onto Lloyd's face, starts screaming at him if he understood how hard they worked for that money. Lloyd, finally revealing his true colors, starts playing the victim card and blames them for making him the leader and asserting their rights when it suits them when he gets stomped in the face by Noel. Noel reminds Lloyd he became the leader himself, put pressure on himself by gambling while kicking the lights out of him. As Noel continues to make pudding out of Lloyd's body, Lloyd begs him to stop and forgive him, although Noel tells him he would have to ask for it 1,000 times more first. Tanya tries to stop Noel, but that ends up backfiring on her as Noel, an avid practitioner of true gender equality, asks her if she would like to take them instead. Noel then uses the truth proclamation skill of talkers on Tanya, and she confesses to gambling with Lloyd. Afterwards, she asks Noel in a delirious state if he realizes what he had done, but Noel stops her midway and tells her he's aware using it for personal gain is illegal, but he used it on a criminal to make them admit to their crimes. Bathing in their misery, Noel tells the two embezzlement is punishable by 10 years of hard labor. The old seeker demands his payment from Noel. Noel tells him to wait there, but he becomes impatient, so Noel delivers a heart concussion to him, a move his grandfather had taught him so he could defend himself as a talker. Meanwhile, a rather fancy carriage arrives where Noel and the others were at, carrying an even fancier passenger on board, a lieutenant of the biggest mafia group in the imperial capital, the Luciano family, and boss of the Barzini subfamily, Pincio Barzini, aka the two-faced mad clown. Anticipating this would happen, Noel had previously struck a deal with Finocchio about selling Lloyd and Tanya off as slaves to cover their losses. The sadistic Noel tells Lloyd and Tanya they would be better off being sold as slaves, as the survival rate of imprisonment with labor is only 2%, while as slaves, they could get a good master if they're lucky. As the mad clown tries to appraise the two for only 6 million fil, Noel brings his price to 15 million fil, proposing he would tell everyone he sold them for 30. So their value goes up, and with the right buyer, the mad clown could eventually sell them for 90 million fil. Impressed by Noel's sharp mind, Finocchio invites him to join his mafia family, but Noel passes and the deal for the slaves is set. The mad clown politely asks the old seeker to not mention this dealing to anyone. Tanya, in a last-ditch effort, asks Noel to forgive her, who without a straight face tells her she should have thought that before gambling their money. Before being taken away, Tanya pleads to Walter, only to insult him with everything there is when he doesn't help her. Being called a heartless devil by the old seeker, Noel figures he should use this sort of notoriety to place himself amongst the world's strongest. Disheartened by everything, Walter quits being a seeker despite Noel's encouragement and invitation to a new blue beyond. The two bid farewell, and Noel walks away after wishing Walter good fortune. Walter looks on as the greatest brother-in-arms he ever had walked out of life. Seeing a shedded snakeskin, Noel realizes he must also shed his old scales and grow new ones in order to grow, marking the day as the rebirth of Blue Beyond. After finding out the whereabouts of his double-crossing former teammates, Lloyd and Tanya, Noel captures them and sells them to the mad clown at a price that more than makes up for what the two traitors had stolen from his party. But faces another setback when Walter decides to leave the party as well. Bent on not losing sight of his goal, Noel doesn't lose hope and decides to rebuild Blue Beyond. What kind of hurdles and new faces await him in this endeavor? We find out in the third episode of The Most Notorious Talker Runs the World's Greatest Clan. The third episode starts off with a hooded girl gazing at Noel's party recruitment bulletin on the town notice board, saying she finally found him. Noel starts getting impatient when no one shows up to join his party. Wolf the Swordman, the leader of Lightning Bite, a hopeful C-ranked rookie party consisting of him, Leisha the elf archer, and other skilled members, tries to persuade Noel to join his party instead, promising he would be making money with them, instead of wasting his time waiting on new members like this. Noel tells him he is in fact interested in joining his party, but only on one condition, which was that Noel be the leader. Wolf begins to agree with them, but catches himself midway and tells them that can't happen since he created Lightning Bite, and so he should be the leader. Kind of like the kid who would not let anyone else bat because it was his bat. While this is going on, a hooded person appears behind them out of the blue, completely catching them all off guard. The hooded person is actually the girl from earlier, who tells them her name is Alma. Noelle is surprised by the mysterious girl who was able to catch even Licia off guard and asks her if she is even old enough to be a seeker, since minors can't be seekers. Alma tells Noelle she's 21, making her 5 years his senior. As Lightning Bite party members start a quick fire of trivial questions from her, Noelle asks Alma her job and rank. She tells him she's a scout and her rank was C. Noelle considers the usefulness of having a scout that could detect danger when exploring abysses and asks her a final question. Why does she want to become a seeker? Alma answers that she had no interest in becoming a seeker. Rather, she was actually interested in Noel, the grandson of Overdeath, who was an enemy of her grandfather's. When Noelle asks her if she had come to exact revenge on him, Alma tells him she had no such intentions and just wanted to know what kind of seeker the hero's grandson was. As Noelle apologizes on behalf of his late grandfather, Alma tells him there's no need and that her grandfather had passed away last month. Upon Noelle's asking, Alma tells him her grandfather was Alcor Judicali, a legendary assassin. Hearing this stuns everyone present at the bar, and a gigantic fellow with a face only a mother could love, Logan, gets up and declares to punish Alma for breaking the unwritten seeker rule of not going to a bar appropriate for her rank. Alma cuts off Logan and asks Noel what determines a seeker's rank. Noel tells her that job rank and then their capability determines their rank. Alma then asks if defeating an ape like Logan should suffice. Absolutely furious upon hearing this, Logan launches a deadly punch at Alma, but she dodges effortlessly and delivers a swift chop to his neck, finishing him off with an axe kick. Not wasting a second, Noel loudly announces to Alma that she was hired, but she responds not with her mouth, but with the growls of an empty stomach. Eating a fried bun Noel got for her, Alma can't hold back her joy over its deliciousness, as the mountains she was from had no food as tasty. Noel then admits that even he was skeptical of that Alcor story first. Alma tells Noel that she, for one, was not doubtful that Noel was the grandson of Overdeath. Because of his eyes, that shouted he would do anything to get what he wanted. Alma tells Noel she has been training to go from scout to assassin, and that she already met the criteria to rank up to B. To which Noel asks, then why didn't she join her Society of Assassins? She tells Noel she wanted to, but wasn't let in after she almost killed her opponent in an exam, and was stopped by the new head of the society, Simon Gregory, stating she was not a right fit for the society, despite acknowledging her skills. Alma, whilst munching on her fried bun, casually starts spilling top-secret info that the society was planning to affiliate with the Crown and become an officially recognized organization that would mainly be doing spying instead of contract killing. Noel asks her if she should be spilling over such highly confidential information to him over a bun, which reminds her that she in fact should not be doing that. Noel starts thinking out loud if trained assassins would now be on the hunt for him, but Alma assures him his big sister Alma would take care of him if that happens. Noel quizzes Alma about buffers. Alma answers that they have low combat but high support skills, which they use to strengthen their party members. Noel then tells Alma there are various kinds of buffs. For example, the talker skill called Assault Command, which boosts the party up so much so that they can one-shot their enemy, but, if used at the wrong time, can also lead to their devastation. Arriving at a lake, Noel tells Alma he is about to conduct an experiment where he would buff her up using his skills while she tries to capture killer rabbits, which are creatures influenced by the abyss. Alma calls them cute, but follows that statement with their fling. Can I eat them? Noel tells Alma not to be deceived by their appearance, as they are quite vicious creatures, and this experiment was to check her adaptability, which would also influence their future plans. Alma senses there to be around 13 killer rabbits in the area. Finding the number plenty for his experiment, Noel activates the buff called Tactician. Alma tells Noel that she could feel power welling up from within. Noel then tells her to use her scout skill Excel, which doubles her speed as it should be buffed now. Noel issues the order, and Alma activates Excel at 5 times power, now buffed to 6 thanks to Noel. Alma zips across the 200-meter radius and is able to collect all 13 killer rabbits in just 8.6 seconds, baffling Noel at how effectively she had utilized her first buffer thanks to her immense inborn talent. Noel then pulls out a letter about a job from the village he had taken jobs from before, which was to hunt thieves that had come to the outskirts of Mint's village. Being escorted on a mouse-driven stagecoach for the first time, Alma can't help her excitement. But Buzzkill Noel has to rain on her parade by telling her the journey was a long and boring one. Noel decides to teach Alma about what Seekers do to pass time. Seekers usually have 4 types of work: monster hunts, where they hunt monsters; crime hunts, where they track and capture criminals; treasure hunts, where they look for treasure; and finally mystic hunts, where they explore mystic lands. Noel goes on to say that a gang of thieves like this usually gets taken care of by the lord of the land, but because they were too slow to act, seekers like themselves were called in. But since the villagers were poor, they shouldn't expect too big of a reward. although this would be a great chance to test Alma's abilities further. The two arrive at Eudora village to rest for the night. Tired from the exhausting trip, they look for hotels to pass the night in and finally manage to find one with just one bed after being turned down by everyone else as they were full. When Noel comes out of the shower, Alma is impressed by his toned, muscular physique, but considers it a pity that no matter how hard he worked as a talker, he could never be on the same level as the frontline job. Rubbing it in further by saying, if only he had been a warrior like his grandpa, Overdeath, he would have been the ultimate seeker. Noel then tells Alma to close her eyes and proceeds to flick her forehead as punishment for not being mindful of how insensitive her words were. Alma's words keep Noel up at night as he remembers what his heroic grandpa Overdeath had told him, that he had dormant seeker talent, just like him. Noel covers his eyes, remembering his late beloved grandpa, and falls asleep. After welcoming the very first member of the reborn Blue Beyond, Alma Judicali, the granddaughter of the legendary assassin Alcor Judicali, by putting her through a test to see if she syncs well with him. Noel takes up a bandit capturing job as the first mission for the rebranded Blue Beyond. Will the mission go smoothly, or will the two be faced with a challenge they aren't yet aware of? Let's find out in episode 4 of Notorious Talker Runs the World's Greatest Clan. Finally arriving at their destination, Noel and Alma get a wholehearted welcome from the person who hired them. Noel greets him back. The employer asks Noel where the rest of his company were. Noel tells him the others left and only Alma and he were here for the job right now, although he should rest assured that they will certainly get the job done by evening. The employer laughs nervously and welcomes the two into his home. As the employer's young daughter hides away from Noel because of her clear infatuation with him, Noel gets on with discussing the agreement. According to the agreement, Blue Beyond had to eliminate 20 criminal drifters who had already ransacked the village neighboring this one and had wreaked havoc there for a total sum of 500,000 fil. Noel finds out about their base from the employer, and after taking the upfront payment of 200,000 fil, Noel and Alma set off for the mission. On their way, Noel gets stopped by the employer's daughter. She shows him a bamboo cutter and tells him she practiced making them a lot after he taught the village kids how to make one last year during his visit, proudly claiming to be the one who made the best ones, admitting embarrassingly that she had treasured it ever since. Noel shows his rarely seen soft side to her. As the little girl runs away, telling Noel she will be waiting for him at dinner, Alma can't help grinning at how Noel had completely wooed the little girl. Pretending to ignore what she just said, Noel tells her to shut up, and they continue on their way to the thieves. At their base, Noel sees that the crafty employers had lied about the total number of bandits, as there were almost 40 bandits there. Noel spots a large, tough-looking man. Noel remembers he was Gordo the Razorblade, a B-class scout-turned-thief with a bounty of 2 million fil on his head. Noel asks Alma if she would be able to defeat Gordo, despite ranking below him. Alma tells him confidently that it wouldn't be a problem for her, although if his henchmen intervened, that would change things. Noel reassures her that he will take care of them. Noel tells her he had a plan. Alma activates stealth and invades enemy territory while communicating with Noel through his thought-sharing skill Link. Positioning herself 10 meters away from her target, Gordo's tent, Alma waits for Noel's order to engage. Noel activates Stun Howl, immobilizing all of Gordo's subordinates, and issues the order: kill Gordo. Boosted up thanks to Noel's buffer, Alma activates Excel at 5 times power and darts into Gordo's tent using her quick attack, skewering him in the process, which immediately kills him. Noel then immediately issues his second order, which was that Alma kills the others as they start coming out of the stun howl used on them. Alma goes into a murdering spree, slicing up the thieves like vegetables. Noel arrives, and using his flash bomb, he stuns the remaining few thieves, setting them on fire, then with his flame bullet. And with that, Blue Beyond makes easy work of the terrible bandits. The two then head back to the employer, who is surprised at their early return. Noel presents him with the head of the leader of the thieves. Elated, the employer insists they come back to his place for dinner, and the two comply. There, Chelsea, who had just recently been appraised as a swordsman, asks Noel if she could become a seeker like him. Noel says she would just have to register, and the capital will take care of the tuition. Chelsea starts getting disheartened after Noel tells her about the costs she'll have to bear afterwards. So Noel tells her there was another way too. She could do odd jobs for seekers. Chelsea asks if she could join Blue Beyond after she became a strong seeker. With his charm meter up at 100, Rizmaster Noel delights her by telling her she certainly could if Blue Beyond could live up to her expectations. As Chelsea promises to do her best, the employers bring out a special expensive wine costing 100,000 fil to celebrate the occasion. Noel takes a look at it and tells him it certainly was good wine, but it wouldn't sit well with him if the host didn't drink it first. Shocked as if he just found out his KFC order had been cancelled, The owner refuses and insists Noel drink first. As Noel presses more, the employer tells him he didn't drink wine. Finding it rather strange that he would purchase such an expensive wine if he didn't drink it, Noel peers into his soul with his sharp scarlet eyes as he tells the employer to not hold back and take the first sip. The first sip of the poisoned wine he was offering Noel. Dumbfounded at the accusation Noel had just made, the employer gets furious and denies doing anything of the sort. When he demands proof, Noel tells him that he had lied to him about the number of thieves so he could pay less, which gave away his stingy nature. So why would a man like him bring out such an expensive wine? By poisoning him and Alma, the employer could keep his money, although it wouldn't have worked as Noel had figured out the wine was cheap and that it was a trap. And Alma, a scout, was already resistant to poisoning. Seeing no way out of this, the employer gets up and yells at the two to get out right away. Noel then casts an honesty spell on him, after which he spills everything as Noel had predicted. Once the truth is out in the open, Noel jumps the employer, throwing him down and gouges his right eye. As he heads for the left, the employer starts whimpering in fear and begs for forgiveness. Noel asks him why he should be forgiven for attempted murder by just saying he's sorry. The employer gives in and agrees to giving Noel his $300 fill payment, but that doesn't cut it anymore for Noel, and he asks for everything he had while Noel appears like a giant serpent about to take his life to him. The employer, shivering in terror, yells it was the Gambino family, a part of the mob. He was in debt to them, and missing a payment would mean they killed him. In his rage, Noel doesn't care about any of that and insists he bring him everything if he valued his life. Chelsea brings out a bag with $820,000 fill, pleading to Noel to take it and let her father go. The employer tries to stop her, but she hands it over anyway. Noel takes the bag and calmly leaves. Chelsea, traumatized by what she had just witnessed, swears a deep hatred for Seekers. Noel listens and sighs. Walking back, Alma asks Noel if he was okay after disappointing someone who looked up to him. Noel answers that if he cared about what people thought, he would go live in a desert. The two notice an aeroplane flying above. Noel notes that it's a 3-star Regalia clan, Goat Dinner's airship. Upon Alma's curiosity, Noel answers that Regalia were special clans that had been acknowledged by the Emperor. Bearing 7 stars in total, there were 4 1-star, 2 2-star, and 1 3-star Regalia clans. Each clan is made up of world-class seekers of the highest caliber, and an airplane like this was one of the perks of being one. Noel then vows that in 1 year's time, they will become Regalia, when Alma suddenly remembers the night of her assassin exam. Answering his question, Alma tells the new chief it was she who had killed Alcor, and that she was the daughter of the legendary assassin, not his granddaughter. Alma tells him the man had lost his mental edge after losing to Overdeath, and would train his children to become invincible assassins as some kind of way to overcome that. She lost all her siblings because of his warped delusions. The chief then told her they didn't need her, despite her power, stating that the new line of work, which involved working as spies for the crown, wouldn't blend well with her. Struggling to comprehend why she had even spent all her life on training for, Alma breaks down, demanding a purpose, a reason to go on in life. The chief tells her to live as she likes. Mentioning Noel to her, the talker grandson of Overdeath, who had been gaining notoriety as of late in town. He tells her to go talk to him. Alma comes back to her senses, embraces Noel firmly, and vows to always fight alongside him. Last time on Notorious, Talker runs the world's greatest clan. After finally arriving at the village they had taken their first job in, Noel and Alma make quick work of their enemies, despite their numbers, and evade a poisoning attempt by their employer. Noel vows to become a Regalia in a year's time, while Alma affirms her loyalty to Noel after finally finding purpose in life. How will Alma's unstable mental state affect the two later on, and what is up next for Blue Beyond? Let's find out in Episode 5. The episode begins with a gray-haired man dragging an unconscious guard into a restroom, where he puts on his uniform and shapeshifts into him. This trespasser then takes the guard's place in his station position, striking up a conversation with his fellow guard so he could learn about the identity of the prisoner he was guarding, Hugo Capilia the puppeteer, the mass murderer who had wreaked havoc in the imperial capital. While doing his daily morning routine of completing 2 laps around the city walls, carrying a barrel full of stones within 2 hours, Noel recounts the training days with his grandfather, who had transformed from a sweet, loving grandfather to a tough coach once Noel had expressed interest in becoming a seeker. Being born with the disadvantage of not being able to strengthen themselves, talkers like Noel had to work especially hard compared to everyone else in order to survive in this harsh world. A knock on his door, and Alma is already in his room this early to snoop around. Alma's attempt at a playful big sister tease doesn't impress Noel too much, who conveys that with a smack on the head. Adamant about playing the sketchy big sister role, Alma asks Noel where he's taking her on their date. Noel takes her to the Appraisal Association, the place to go for job appraisals and ranking up. Run by special gnomes born with the appraisal job class, they spent their lives researching jobs. A person could rank up when a rank up mark would appear on their chest, as in Alma's case, or on the back of their hand. As a gnome completes the ranking up process of a seeker, Noel asks Alma if she wants to become an assassin after all. Alma shows uncertainty about it, but is willing to do it if that's what Noel wanted. Although becoming one would result in more fighting power, the decision would depend on what kind of members they get. The mention of more members doesn't please Alma too much, who seemed content with their current dynamic, but it was necessary if they wanted to go into the abyss. Therefore, Noel asks Alma to not go through with her rank up currently, and for now they would just look into what jobs would be best to rank up today for them. Next stop is an arms shop run by a dwarf chief. Noel highlights the importance of maintaining good weapons and armor, as these went hand in glove in terms of brining out a seeker's full potential. Up next after that is the skill guide shop, which sold instruction manuals about how to learn skills. Noel leaves for another skill guide shop that was for his class, while leaving Alma behind with the strict instructions of not wasting the money. Despite Noel's orders, Noel spots Alma with a giant teddy bear almost as big as her on his return. Alma explains she had gotten him for about 20% of the budget. Although before Noel starts talking trash to her, Alma tells him she had actually also bought an instruction manual for a skill, a ranged armored piercing, which could be used to half enemies' defenses. As Alma brags on about the incredible haggling she did by buying both the teddy bear and the book in under 1 million fil, Noel tells her about the skill that he couldn't get because it was too expensive. 30,000 film, exorcism, which could return the undead to their graves instantaneously. Noel then all of a sudden notices an individual and goes up to him, leaving Alma behind with her giant teddy. All the way into the slumps, Noel meets up with Loki, the shape-shifting guy from earlier, who had hijacked a prison guard's post. As Noel complains about the location for their dealing, Loki tells him he had to keep a low profile. The information Noel had asked him to get turns out to be on the puppeteer, Hugo Capella, the mass murderer who rocked the capital. Figo shows concern over Noel's desire for him to join their ranks because of Hugo's crimes. Noel, however, believes in Hugo's innocence and was actually having info collected in order to set him free. Loki calls Noel nuts for first selling his teammates as slaves and now cooking someone alive. Noel, however, considers this as a compliment. Noel praises Loki the Faceless for a job well done, having been given that title because of his ability as an imitator to shapeshift into anyone he desired. Loki puts on a demonstration showcasing the ability that had helped him enter any place he wanted by transforming into several people within seconds. He then takes his payment from Noel and offers a cautionary tip by telling Noel about a new drug spreading around that gave a good high, but would also put the user in a state of delirious rage. Albert Gambino, the head of a subfamily of the Luciano family, had been responsible for selling this drug, which is why he hadn't been taken out yet. Loki warns Noel to stay wary of him. Angry at Noel for just leaving her that on their quote-unquote date, Alma scoffs down food enough to feed the town when a familiar face runs into her. Meanwhile, Noel wanders about in the slums, teeming with drug addicts at every corner. This would never have happened under the previous boss's rule, but ever since his sudden death and his son Albert's takeover, the town has been in absolute shambles. Continuing his stroll, Noel passes by a really desolate-looking foreigner. Pitying the poor man who was down on his luck in a foreign land, Noel drops a silver coin while walking past him to lend him a helping hand. But the frail foreigner surprises Noel when he calls out to him about dropping his coin. Despite his honest intentions, the frail foreigner confuses Noel for a lady and advises him to take better care of her belongings. Noel quickly corrects him about his gender, which is quite a shock to the frail foreigner. Noel then insults the guy by telling him he could keep his coin now that his filthy hands had touched it. He has no need for it, hoping he'd take the bait and keep the coin. But the foreign man insists Noel take his money, and when he gets physical, Noel quickly puts him in his place with a kick to the gut. The weak-looking foreigner then does something that surprises Noel. He takes the stance of a gladiator and charges Noel. Noel barely manages to dodge his swings at first, but then has no problem throwing around the skilled yet physically weak gladiator. The frail gladiator asks Noel if he was a ninja, a scout-like job that only existed in the Far East. Noel tells him he was a talker, not a ninja. The swordsman is surprised by this and asks Noel to show him some of his skill as he takes his stance and starts glowing because of his overflowing power. Noel gets very excited by this. Thinking he had found himself the next member of Blue Beyond, Noel challenges the gladiator to an all-out fight in order to see what he was capable of. But their duel stops before even starting when a short, stubby elf shows up, yelling at the gladiator for making a ruckus while he was gone, calling him by the name Koga. Meanwhile, Alma discusses her options as a scout in terms of ranking up. She could become an assassin or torturer as a frontline job, or a chaser or bandit as a backline job. The Appraiser Association had told Alma she had the highest affinity with assassin or chaser, although she still wasn't sure about what she wanted. Noel had told her to hold off on her decision till they got new members. Since then, they'll know what job will suit their party best. Alma's acquaintance tells her that perhaps Noel was busy searching for one right now. Back at Noel, the tiny elf electrocutes Koga using the ring he got because of his oath of subjugation with Koga. An oath that was illegal to make unless between a master and a slave. The tiny elf then takes notice of Noel. Also confusing him for a lady like his slave Koga, he makes creepy flirting attempts at Noel. Noel shuts him up by sending him flying like a football. Noel then starts interrogating the elf about his identity. He learns that this man ran an underground fighting ring in the far south for the D'Alembert family, but had to flee to the capital after pocketing the boss's bribe money. Since the Gambino family held more power, he would be safe here in the capital. Koga was a gladiator slave he had bought and trained with the intention of having him fight in rings here in the capital, and eventually returning back to the underground fighting ring again. The elf, still under the impression that Noel was a girl, asks him if he was also doing something similar. Noel finally clears the air by telling him he was a seeker and a man. The short elf is stunned at this, but far more at learning Noel was a man. Noel isn't very happy at it being so shocking that he was a man. Noel contemplates killing him as he was already a wanted man, and that would grant him access to Koga, whom he desperately wanted in his party. On the other hand, Alma, who wanted Blue Beyond to remain just her and Noel, makes her mind about just killing anyone who joins. As their eyes glisten with the menacing look of a murderer, a gunshot is heard as the camera pans to the sky, and the episode ends there. Last time on The Most Notorious Stalker runs the world's greatest clan. Seeking to incorporate a new member into their ranks, Noel had the shape-shifting expert Loki look into the case surrounding the notorious murderer Hugo Capella. While walking about in the slums where he met Loki, Noel runs into a frail-looking homeless man who turns out to be a skilled gladiator. Interested in taking Koga into his party, Noel thinks about killing the man who owned him. On the other hand, Alma schemes to kill any new member so that Blue Beyond stays just her and Noel. Will Noel go through with killing in exchange for a new party member? And will Alma actually eliminate the new party member? Find out in episode 6. The episode starts off in dramatic fashion as Noel fires a warning shot right above the tiny slave owner's head. Noel gives him a 10-second count to scurry from his sights, and he does just that, waking the fried-out Koga and running away alongside him. Koga kept up with all this from his weak master, despite possessing the power to easily kill him. Wanting a ferocious wolf and not a starved dog, Noel expresses disappointment in Koga's weak mindset. Noel returns to Alma to find Alicia also present there. Alicia asks Noel to treat her with some food, while Noel can't seem to understand why exactly he would do that. That's when Alma, who had been stuffing herself like a Thanksgiving turkey until Alicia arrived, tells Noel she had been keeping her company while he was out busy ditching her on their date. Noel, knowing paying for her would be the easiest option, agrees to treat her ultimately. Curious about the amount of time Noel had been away, Alicia asks him if he was headhunting for any new recruits, and if he was successful. With the Koga recruitment not being successful, Noel only tells her about learning about the rage-inducing drug that was very widespread right now, and advises her to warn her party leader Wolf as well about it. Alicia bids them both farewell as she extends the hand of friendship to Alma, who accepts it wholeheartedly, suggesting BFFs instead. Noel, however, doesn't share the same feelings as Alma and refuses. As she departs, Noel ponders that the situation with the drug was quite concerning if even Lycia had heard about it. Meanwhile, Miguel, the chibi slave owner, gets called in by the current chief of the Gambino family, Albert Gambino. A true madman, with bags under his deeper-than-most politicians' pockets. Albert tells Miguel he was awfully confident if he thought he could just run away to the capital and succeed in running away from a crime family he just duped. Holding out a warrant for his arrest from the D'Alembert family, Albert had been asked to return Miguel to the D'Alembert family by the mad clown Luciano himself. But thinking it beneath him to do work for a lower-ranked family, Albert suggests that he has a better idea. Why not just stuff these two and give them to the D'Alembert family as toys? Not very on board with being a stuffed toy, Miguel expresses deep concern over this idea as Koga accepts the end finally being here. But Albert, who had already made up his mind, orders his right-hand man, Laios, to start preparing for this. That's when all of a sudden, the conniving chief of the Mint's village, who had tried to poison Noel and Alma to rob them, comes walking in. Overdue on his debt payment, the crippled chief complains to Albert about the atrocities Noel and his party had committed, telling him that Noel had stolen their money and smeared the name of the Gambino family in the process by calling them insignificant, which he totally did not. Feeling he probably shouldn't let an insult like that pass, Albert announces that he shall administer justice to Noel while he waits for his money. The one-eyed chief expresses his gratitude to Albert, thinking he had been spared, but Albert soon turns his sigh of relief into pure terror as he announces he would be taking his right arm as compensation for being late on his debt. He asks Koga, who he knew was a longswordsman, to slice it off using the chief's own wooden walking stick. Koga gets up and takes the stick. But before he can get the job done, Albert stops him and munches on a piece of crystal lying in a dish on his table. Immediately going into a hysterical high, Albert confirms that to be the infamous drug that had been spreading around recently. Koga then resumes his stance again. The chief remains confident that he couldn't possibly cut his arm off using a wooden stick as the needle ticks on the clock. Koga turns in a swift manner, and a red circle appears around the chief's right arm. Then it suddenly falls down, followed by a shower of blood. As the chief writhes in pain, flopping like a fish out of water on the ground, Albert goes into a hysterical laughing fit, expressing his liking of the enslaved swordsman. Miguel, desperate to save his own butt, immediately offers Koga up as a slave to Albert after casually mentioning he had trained him to be this great. Albert accepts, and the next minute, Koga is putting on a brand new outfit, befitting for a slave of the Gambino family. As he is putting it on, Koga remembers about his haunting past. His father was a successful merchant, while his mother a graceful beauty. The two longed for a child to complete their happy family. But one dark day, while they were praying for a child, they got robbed of their happiness forever. 9 months passed, and Koga is born into the Tsukishima family. Although his father never accepted him from the very start, suspecting him of even being his son. One day, when his mother asked him to look at his son, he flat out asked her if he truly was. Having fallen into a dark place ever since that incident, his mentally ill mother couldn't take that and took her own life. Ever since then, Koga had lived a life where no one wanted or accepted him, even his very own father. One day, Koga finds himself in cuffs, sailing away on a ship. It doesn't take him long to realize his father had sold him off as a slave. That's when Miguel, the puny elf, bought Koga as a slave and put him into underground fighting not long after. After securing his first victory, Koga received a hug from an elated Miguel, who was just concerned with the potential money he could make off Koga. Although for poor Koga, this was the first time he had gotten any form of approval or recognition. As Koga kept besting fighters one after the other, Koga eventually realized he was but a mere tool for Miguel. Suited up, Koga gets ready to depart on his first mission. Meanwhile, Noel gets called to a rundown hall by Loki, who explains the reason behind his sudden summoning was to tip Noel off about his wanted status. Noel is surprised the Gambino family actually believed the false made-up story from the Mint's chief. Loki tells Noel such could be expected from the madman Albert, who didn't need reasoning for his decisions. All of a sudden, Noel catches the rustling sound of an Ahmed person approaching. Noel realizes quickly why Loki had called him there so unexpectedly. He had sold Noel out. Noel questions Noel's integrity as an informant for selling out a client. Loki admits to his sin, but justifies it by saying he only had one life, and he'd rather enjoy it in another country, taking it easy with the money he made by doing this. Noel reminds Loki he forgot to consider one thing in his plan: Noel himself. As Noel points his gun at the disgraced informant, he tells him it was a pity he had to do this since he didn't hate him. Loki, realizing that he hadn't sold out Noel, but his integrity as an informant, stands there with open arms and completely unguarded, willingly accepting his punishment. But Noel, being the big softy he is, doesn't actually go through with it and pardons Loki, telling him he could stay here and regain his reputation once Noel had destroyed the Gambino family. Loki, taken aback by this generous gesture shown by Noel, laughs at what he was witnessing, and takes his leave. Noel then takes a battle potion to enhance his combat abilities for the next minutes. The armed assassin finally arrives, and it's none other than Koga. Glad to see Koga finally away from his previous master, Noel congratulates him for his promotion. Getting ready to resume their fight from earlier, Noel takes his stance, but Koga doesn't budge. Still feeling indebted to Noel about the silver coin from earlier, Noble Koga had no desire to fight him. Although, since he couldn't flat out disobey his master's orders, Koga tries to even the playing field a little by announcing his job, rank, and special ability loudly before the fight. Knowing what he was up to, Noel decides to return the favor as well as he does the same. The battle commences, and Noel immediately notices a sharp increase in Koga's quickness, as compared to before. Noel shoots a flame bullet at Koga, engulfing him in a cloud of flames. Although, to Noel's surprise, Koga slices away the air around him to create a vacuum, thus keeping the fire from him. As the two engage in a fierce sword fight, Noel tries to go for a crotch hit when Koga immediately calls time out, complaining that that was not cool. Noel reminds Koga that they were currently in a life-or-death altercation, where anything goes. Right as he says that, Noel throws a flash bomb at Koga, blinding him. But Noel's attack is met with a barrage of pre-made attacks, Koga's special ability, secret swordsmanship, Tsubame Geishi. Creating a smoke screen around Noel through his attacks, Koga sneaks up on Noel from his back, but Noel is able to sense him and blocks his attack. However, this impact crumbles the already run-down floor. Koga leaps into the air, preparing his next attack as Noel unleashes Stun Howl right at him, although it appears to have no effect on him as he strikes the floor at Noel's feet, sending him falling with it. Stay connected, like and subscribe for more fun recaps on one and only Endless Recaps.